Just in case you were wondering, this is what they mean by smashing the gangs. I will try not to be sarcastic in this video, but I can't make any promises because I'm British. So welcome back. This is not Black Belt Secrets, my off-the-record segment, but do head over there and subscribe if you like my personal opinions and my off-the-record segment, which is relatively new. But this video, I'm still at the desk and I've read this, so I might as well tell you about it and you might as well sit and listen to it. So this is the latest thing from our new government. This is the smashing the gangs thing. So I kid you not, this is absolutely serious. In fact, the thumbnail to this video is probably going to be something like, are they serious? You see, I come up with these things sometimes when I'm filming, sometimes afterwards and sometimes beforehand. If you want to know more about my theories and my processes of doing all this stuff, then head over to my other channel, Daniel Shensmith, also linked in the description below. Enough plugging, let's get on with this. So this is the smashing the gangs thing, and ostensibly it is absolutely serious. So for the avoidance of doubt, go and read the full thing so I can't be held accountable for not giving you the full details. So it says here, UK-Iraq border security pact to target the smuggling gangs. This is the smashing the gangs. I told you I'd try not to be sarcastic, but here we are. Home Secretary signs a landmark joint statement with Iraq, good old trusty country, to tackle people smuggling and organised crime networks operating across the region and in Europe. The too long didn't read version, by the way, if you've got to get out of here, is that we're providing money to teach Iraq to police its own borders and to teach them about drug control, all in the hopes of not having people smuggle people here, if that makes sense. But there's obviously a bit more detail. In a world-first security agreement has been reached between Iraq and the UK government to target people smuggling gangs and strengthen border security cooperation. The UK will also support Iraq law enforcement to tackle other serious organised crime, including countering narcotics, drugs. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper visited Iraq and the Kurdistan region of Iraq, the KRI, this week to seal a series of cooperation deals to tackle shared threats and boost the security of its citizens. The Home Secretary is the first UK government Secretary of State to visit the country since 2021. Obviously, there's a whole history to Iraq, which, if you are interested, you can pop over to the BBC website here. There's a whole history of Iraq and what's happened over there, so you can go ahead and have a look for yourself. But she's the first Secretary of State to visit since 2021. She was accompanied by the UK government's Border Security Commander, Martin Hewitt, during the three-day official visit, etc. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Here's what they're going to do to smash the gangs. They signed a joint statement on border security, a first-of-its-kind agreement with Iraq, which sets out the commitments of both countries to work more closely in tackling people smuggling and bolster border security. Bolster border security, control the borders, etc. Committing to providing up to £300,000 for Iraq law enforcement training in border security. It's going to teach them how to police and control their borders. The training will focus on organised immigration crime and narcotics and will increase the capacity and capability of Iraq's law enforcement at the border. So increasing their border policing. Fantastic. Announced support for further border security projects. The UK government has pledged £200,000 to support projects in the KRI, which will enhance capabilities concerning irregular migration and border security, including a new task force. So doing it there as well. Signed a declaration of intent on serious organised crime, pledges both the UK and Iraq to build on operational and bilateral cooperation on serious organised crime, including organised immigration crime, narcotics, modern slavery and human trafficking and illicit finance, money laundering. So a declaration of intent, as well as stumping up some cash. Support to tackle wider crime. Not sure how this is really different, but support to tackle wider crime. £300,000 will also be allocated to capacity building in Iraq to disrupt serious organised crime, including organised immigration crime and illicit drug flows. I'm not quite sure how that's different, but nonetheless, we're providing £300,000 for it. I'm sure there's a lot more detail to it than these bullet points, you understand, but you can obviously go and read the full thing to see what it is. Agreed to launch communications campaign in both Iraq and the KRI to counter the misinformation and the myths that people smugglers post online. Not quite sure what myths they're talking about, but there are clearly some myths online that they want to counter by way of tackling misinformation with this communications campaign in both Iraq and the KRI. Signed a joint statement on migration. This includes further work on the returns of people who have no right to be in the UK. So we're going to stump up some money, teach their police, help them police their borders to prevent people leaving. But when they do leave and they come here, there's a joint statement which includes doing further work on the return of people to Iraq that have no right to be in the UK, where returns are currently very slow, and the continued provision of reintegration programs to support returnees. So we're going to also support them going back to Iraq. Central to the statements agreed today is a commitment from the UK, Iraq and the KRI to international and humanitarian law and commitment to international human rights. I mean, in all seriousness, the human rights element and keeping people safe and protecting people is all very serious. But this, I have to be somewhat cynical, and I don't want to be overly negative and pessimistic, but somewhat cynically, I don't think this is going to really work. But that's just me. I'm not the expert on these things. Landmark commitments, etc. There are smuggling gangs profiting from dangerous small boat crossings, stretching back through northern France, Germany, and across Europe. I mean, one alternative might be to cooperate a bit more with France, or albeit it might go counter to some of the policies and the laws, etc. But if, just hypothetically, we were to take them back to France, which is where they came from, the only thing we can be sure of for certain is that they came from France. If they came in a boat from France, is that they last whence came from France. Somebody asked me just earlier today, what do we do when some people don't have passports, documents, ID, and we don't know who they are, we don't know where they're from, we don't know what their history is. What can we do? Where can we send them, and how can we deal with them? The brutal reality is it's extremely difficult to deal with anyone like that because we don't know who they are, we don't know where they came from, we don't know anything about their background, we don't have their ID. So it's very difficult then to go to a country and say we want to send them there, back to you, when we don't know for certain that that's where they came from. That is a very real difficulty. But nonetheless, there's joint statements. There's also some £300,000 from UK Integrated Security Fund will be spent on training at the border to counter organised immigration crime and narcotics. I'm not sure if that's the same £300,000 that we mentioned earlier. I suspect it is, but either way, that's £800,000 so far for this commitment to smash the gangs. On deterrence communication, the planned campaign will seek to counter disinformation spread by criminal gangs and stop people making the dangerous journey, including telling the real stories of people who have fallen victim to people smuggling gangs. I'm not sure what those stories are. I'm sure there are stories behind that. And all of this is part of the smashing the gangs regime. Next, the UK government will co-host Calais group with Germany in London. The interior ministers of the host will be joined by their counterparts from France, Belgium and the Netherlands, as well as law enforcement, including NCA, Europol, etc. Their summary. Since July, the new government has, they say, started recruitment of 100 specialists, announced anti-smuggling action, hosted the European Political Community Summit, announced new agreements with Serbia, pushed a suite of new measures to tackle organised immigration crime, and returned 9,400 people. I did question that before. I'm not entirely certain that what I say is 100% accurate, but according to their own guidance document, it refers to the figures and the statistics and how to interpret those, and it says that the returns could be counted multiple times for a single person. Thus, 9,400 returns is not necessarily 9,400 people. But nonetheless, they still say they've returned 9,400 people since July who have no right to be in the UK. So I'm not certain whether that is actually 9,400 people or whether it's just repeatedly erroneous and slightly misleading. But it's either 9,400 people or it's 9,400 returns, some of whom have been returned more than once, which I suspect is not that many. So if we take, let's say, a few hundred, it's still in the region of 9,000 people, even if it's a few hundred of those are multiple returns for the same people, perhaps still in the region of 9,000, which is not too shabby. But this is the Smashing the Gang. So I thought I'd bring these to you. Obviously, go and read the full thing, so I can't be held accountable for giving you the wrong information. But as I said, I remain somewhat cynical and skeptical, but optimistic, and hopefully this will actually assist. I think there are probably other ways to do it better. But as I say, I'm no expert. But there we are. I read it so you could hear about it. So make sure you subscribe here. Also check out my other channels if you want my personal views and my off-the-record segments over on Black Belt Secrets. But for now, have a great evening and thanks for watching.